Hello, and welcome back to the Struggle podcast. This is episode 4, and we are going to talk about something quite interesting today. But first, if you are watching this episode on YouTube, you can see that I have moved. I have moved place. I have moved apartment. It was time for me to move from my old apartment. So, got this one instead. Not much to say about it, unless, yeah, new environment, I guess. But yeah, let's get back to the video. We are going to talk about maybe not entirely the brain, but in the circumstance of maybe the psychology of the brain, or at least dive a bit more into it. And why we're doing that is to maybe get a better understanding of why we do the things we do and how we are functioning and how we can use that knowledge of our function, how we function, how we can use that knowledge to maybe enhance our decision makings, our feelings, and how we feel overall in our well-being. So I think that's a pretty good, you know, what you say. It's a pretty good argument. That was it. Pretty good argument for why we should have a better understanding of this to get a better overall well-being. So the first thing I would touch upon on this topic is that Freud, a heavy guy in the psychology theory and history, he made a theory about the free consciousness, and I feel now that I should have read up upon this before starting this episode, but we're gonna wing it, see how it goes. I'm not that much of a psychology guy in truth. I had a course in high school. I had it for 2 years actually, where we talked mostly about, not mostly, but we talked about Freud, and we talked about how the psychology develops during childhood and how important it is to have to have good circumstances during your childhood, because it affects us immensely upon how we grow and develop for the rest of our lives. Depends on what happens during our childhood years, how we were taken care of, and so on and so on. Very important. But yeah, back to Freud. He made a you can say a divide of the psychology of a human being to the unconsciousness, the consciousness, and then the super consciousness. I cannot remember the word for this one, but there is a third as well. And I'm not going to talk about his theory about it, but just so that we have this overall understanding of that the psychology is divided into three, you could say, specters. And how I'm going to talk about it is that I'm going to talk about as the unconsciousness as the feeling aspect, also called feeling brain. And then we have the consciousness as the thinking brain, and the upper consciousness, super consciousness as the observing brain. And these three terms is, I think, very interesting, how we can divide it into feeling brain, thinking brain, and observing brain, because that gives us now an opportunity to have a understanding of our feelings as an individual part of the brain, as the thinking as an individual part of the brain, and then at last the observing part as an individual part of the brain. Why is this important? Because many people are saying that I feel the way I feel, and I think the way I think, and I can't change that. And that is actually true. You can't change the way you think or the way you feel. But then with the last part, the observing brain, you can change how you observe these feelings and these thoughts, which is very interesting. So if we start at the feeling brain, we are feeling beings. We feel a lot of things, and these feelings occur in a lot of different circumstances. You know, if you do something, many people, when they are going up to prepare speech on a stage or just going to talk to a larger crowd, people get nervous. They start to feel anxious about this presentation, and they start to sweat. They start to get stressed, and so on and so on. That's a feeling, and it happens to actually all people when they go on stage. The difference is how people treat it and how they observe it. Some people get just caught up in it, and they cannot comprehend this. They just sit in the chair and be like, oh man, I can't do this. And then there's the other people who are used to this feeling, who has experienced before and trained it, knows what it is, and are not afraid of it. They get nervous too, but they walk up on stage and present a very good speech. Even so. And both people have the same feeling. Now, that's a big thing. That we all have these feelings, but some just observe them and tend to them in different ways, which make them more able to, what can you say, control these feelings. And that's, I just lost the thread. Okay, so feeling brain. This means that we should get in more touch with our feelings, but not in the extreme way that we should just let loose on our feelings. And going back to the example that I introduced in the last episode about, I talked about there were two metaphors for feeling brain and thinking brain, not the observing brain, but the two others. And that was, first of all, the consciousness car, I think it was called, where we have the feeling brain driving the car and the thinking brain sitting next in the passenger seat. But as I also said last time, I like the metaphor with the horse and the rider instead, where the horse is the feeling brain and the rider is the thinking brain. So the horse is a part that we cannot control. But to get forward in life, or just, have some sort of control of the direction we're going, we need to be able to understand the horse and control it. Because otherwise, the horse just moves where it wants. It goes with the flow. Same thing with the feelings brain. And this is where the rider, the thinking brain, comes into place. That we should be able to, you could say, speak to our feeling brain and not essentially rationalize it, because rational thoughts does not encourage the feeling brain to act, which is what many people believe it does. That I have heard many on the internet, motivational speakers and authors and so on, just say, you just need to be better and do this better and push yourself. And I get where they're at, but I am started to believe that this is not the correct way, because we all know we should eat healthy. We all know that we should be working out. We all know that we should be watching less television, but people do not do it. And that is not because they don't know it. They can rationalize themselves to say, I shouldn't be doing this, but they do it instead. Why? It is because I have started to believe that there's something in their feelings brain, feeling swear, that is not as it should be. Mark Manson, he said that all problems are caused by emotional problems. And I get where he's at. Maybe not all problems. I mean, I have not a spectrum of all problems in the world, but I mean, a lot of problems, I think, is created because of emotional problems. But how do we change this? There are certain ways to do it, and one of them is to become more knowledgeable about emotional intelligence. So you have the emotional intelligence for the feeling brain, and you have the IQ, you could say, for the thinking brain. So the higher IQ, the higher you can rationalize and think abstract thoughts and so on. You know the concept. But emotional intelligence is rather newer term that is it has gained more and more popularity over the last 25 years. I think it actually is, maybe 30 even. And a lot of psychologists, professors, and doctors, and so on, believe that it is actually more important in decision making than we think. The thing that I'm talking about right now, that is actually not the emotional or the thinking brain that is the decision maker, but the feeling brain that is the decision maker. You know, the feeling brain drives the car. The feeling brain is the horse. If you cannot motivate the horse will not. I say horse, why not horse? Horse. Sorry. If you can motivate the horse, then it will not move. You will not take the decision required for you to move. So we have to get a better understanding of our feelings. How can we get in touch with our feelings so that we can go in the direction we want in life? And that is to get more knowledge of emotional intelligence, to say, why is it that I do not go to the gym? Why is it that I watch so much television? And it usually tends down to some kind of emotional problem. And it usually comes down to either self-esteem or fear, anxiety. And when it comes to actually both self-esteem and anxiety, what is some of the most, best ways to treat it is the exposure effect. Now, this doesn't mean that if you are afraid to speak in front of people, that you should speak on a crowd of 1,000 people. This is the exposure effect, or exposure therapy, is more in terms of that you have to increase exposure at a time. Because if you go on a level that's too hard for you, then your fear will increase. And that is not ideal for curing an anxiety. But there's also the thing that you should not start on a level too low, because then it becomes too boring, and you don't want to keep, make yourself exposed to the thing that makes you scared. So you have to find a balance and a way to treat it so that you can move, so that you can move more towards not being so fearful, but being able to act against the fear. Because one thing that people also have to acknowledge is that fear, anxiety, also other feelings like anger, wrath, and sadness, they are not bad emotions. We all have them. They all come to us, and there's at least I believe that there's no way to, remove them. So the way that I think that it should be treated is to look the feelings at how they are and act not maybe against them, but towards them. Act despite that you have these feelings. And you know what? Courage, how that courage is defined, it is to be able to act against your fear. It's not to act without fear, it is to act against your fear. When I first found out the real meaning of courage, I was like mind blown. I was like, whoa, that's actually pretty crazy. So it's not about getting rid of the fear, it's about being able to act despite the fear, which is hard. I get it. I have been there many times, and I have started to keep acting instead of my fear, because courage is also like a muscle. The more you use it, the more you work it, the bigger it grows, the easier it comes, the more strengthened it becomes, and you become more courageable. You gain more courage and you can act in more situations where you usually would be scared, or you're still scared, but you would not act. But when you train your courage, you become more obliged to keep pushing and keep acting against the fear. And that's pretty essential. That's a pretty big thing. But then how can you do it? Yeah, that's a big question that I am in the midst of answering myself, because as I also said in the last video, I'm not an expert in emotional intelligence. I am figuring this stuff out myself as well, and it's actually going pretty good, or at least I'm learning, I'm getting better, and it is in the way of understanding this, that there are no bad feelings. You shouldn't try to get rid of feelings, but instead let them flow. Let them come as they are. If you get angry, if someone pisses you off, get angry at them. Not try to push it down or deny it, because that would just increase your anger and make it longer than it actually would be. So you should just let it flow, feel it, acknowledge it, then let it go, like just that. And then try and answer, get a bit of an understanding of it, to say, what happened? Why did I get so angry? And then you might say, that's because he talked about this topic that I'm not good enough, and I know that very well. I have these thoughts in my head all the time, and when he said that, I just got so pissed off. So maybe you should start to ask yourself, why are you not good enough? And try to work with those beliefs instead. I can see now that there are a lot of things that I would like to talk about in this subject, and it just would get too broad if I start to put all these things in to this episode. And what I'm thinking with this is that it's quite, to me at least, it's quite a broad topic, because in the informations that I have collected throughout actually the past 2 years, I have started to see that this particular topic, emotional intelligence, starts to connect to different things in both psychology and spirituality. And if I were to drag in all these ways that it connects, it would just get too long. And what I'm thinking is that there's the book of Eckhart Tolle, which is called The Power of Now. which is a book about spirituality, where he actually talks about the thinker and the observer, which is what I would say is the same as the thinking brain and the observing brain. I have not finished the book. I listened to it on Audible and I couldn't finish it. The topics and the way he read it, it just didn't resonate with me very well. Also because I think that he, or what some spiritual guides, or what you will call them, spiritual enlighteners, they say that when you acknowledge this, that you can you are just complete, or what you say, pure awarenesses, then you will not be unhappy at any point in your life. You will never be sad or something. And I just don't think that. I think, to be honest, I think that's bullshit. You can't be in a life where you will not be sad and you will not be angry. And that's okay. There are not bad feelings. They're just on the equal feeling as joy, as happiness, and all the other good feelings. So and it's the same with The Secret and the books and authors and those who believe in all these things. I mean, if it works for them, good. Keep on working. It just doesn't work for me. I think it's naive to be thinking that way, that when you imagine this, then you will never be unhappy again. That's naive. That's bullshit, to be honest. Okay, that was the spiritual part, as I just quickly mentioned. And I think the other part is a relatively new therapy form in psychology, which is called metacognitive therapy. MCT, yes, metacognitive therapy. And I have gone this therapy, and it helped me a lot with my thoughts. And I have decided right now that I will do a singular episode on that topic, because I can see now that would be too broad in this episode. So just to get back to the feeling and thinking brain, to kind of summarize it, that it's not that you do know that you should be working out and you should be eating healthy and all these things. And the reason why you do not do it is not because you don't know it and you can't rationalize these concepts, but that there are some emotional problems, perhaps from your childhood or maybe from earlier in your life, that has stuck with you and made you unable to act in these ways to, in my definition, be good towards yourself. Working out, eating healthy, getting fresh air. I'm looking out of the window, yearning to go outside, to do these things, to better yourself. It's not because you can't do it. It's just that you are prohibited from doing it because of your emotions, your fears, your anxiety towards maybe these things. Maybe you are fearful to going to the gym because you feel like that everybody is looking at you. I'm just going to tell you a quick secret here. Nobody cares about you in the gym. I have been there for so many years. People do not care about other than themselves. That's why there are mirrors all over the place in the gym, so people can look at themselves. So just go to the gym. No worries. And I say that after I just have explained why you are unable to go to the gym. So this means that maybe I would say start working with your emotional intelligence. Get to know your feelings, why you feel the way you feel, so you are better equipped to, when you get these feelings, to act despite these feelings, which is a major point and a really big thing to get to in life. So, I think my voice just went a little over the top there. book recommendations. As I said, I have not gone that much into emotional intelligence, but I have searched, and there are a lot of books on these topics. I think you can call it the MVP, both book and author, is Emotional Intelligence by Daniel Goleman, back from 1999 or something like that. It's quite an old book, but it's, as I have read about it, it should still be worthwhile. And also he read a book upon social intelligence, which is also a book that I should be reading, because social skills have not been a major thing in my life. It's something that has come during the later years that I have gotten better social skills. I hadn't in my teenage year or in my adolescence life. I had very poor social skills, which I think comes down to my lack of self-worth and self-confidence back in my teens, which has also improved. So they might work hand in hand. When you improve your social skills, you also improve your self-worth and self-confidence. And when you improve your self-worth and self-confidence, then you also improve your social skills. So, as we talked about last time, between the body and the brain, these two kind of affects each other in the same way as well. So that's Daniel Goleman, and I can't remember other titles and writers, but others have made books upon emotional intelligence, also how you can teach it towards children and how to use it to maybe not heal, but treat childhood traumas. And who also introduced me to Feeling Brain and Thinking Brain is Mark Manson. I would always recommend Mark Manson's book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck and Everything is Fucked. I liked both books. The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, I have heard a lot of things in it before. Some things I hadn't, but in Everything is Fucked, that's a good book. Whoa. But he also mentions it when he talks about it himself, that it's more philosophical, it's more deep into more society aspects and also personal aspects of well-being. I think it was a very good book. I liked it, that it was so much more and so more ambitious than The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. That I liked a lot. So, but I get what he's meaning. It's not a book for everyone. But I would like to talk about both books in some future episode. But that's not gonna be now. Upon other book recommendations, I had The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. I have not read it. I have not listened to it. I couldn't. And I don't know if I can recommend it in that way, but I know that other people liked it. And in the essence of the book is still that you should be more present in each moment, which is what you saying? Which is something that I stand for as well. I just gonna say, I think that the present moment is the most valuable thing that we have. And to be able to act in present moment is also some kind of, the way to act despite being fearful, because you feel fear in this moment and you act despite it. So try it, see if you like it. I will dive into it again at some point, not now. And about metacognitive therapy, there's a book by the professor who, made metacognitive therapy, Adrian Wells. I have not read it. I would imagine that it's a kind of hardcore psychology book, but I would like to read it someday. But yeah, that's going to be for another video. So next episode, as I promised, we are going to talk about the 3 pillars of good and healthy habits to more energy in your life. And oh man, I just made it realize pretty recent, actually. It was some days ago where I was like, okay, it's actually not just living a strict life. It's that makes, or let me rephrase that. Living, if some may see it as living a strict life, doing healthy habits is a strict life. That sentence did not make sense, but you know what I mean. And I get it. It can get boring sometimes. And I have found out after I moved, not more than 4 days ago, that doing things that you like and you think are fun, that also gives you energy. I mean, and that's a pretty important thing that I have that I haven't given much thought of before. But I see it now that doing things that you like also gives energy, and you should, keep doing that. I know that we are living in a world where we cannot always do things we like and enjoy, but do as much as possible, which is, I think, also comes down to what I talked about in my video about goals and dreams, that if there's something you like, go in a direction towards where you can keep doing that as much as possible. I mean, and earn money for it. Go for it. Do what you like. And on that, I'm going to end this video or this episode because it's already gone too long, as always. But what the heck? That's just what it is. So